1. Well, hello and welcome back. We are down to one task. If we go here, oops, we have one left from our little UAT, and we're going to deal with time frame and deleting it. So now it's been a while, so let's go back to that. Within this one, let's create a time frame, and this one's going to be just where it's at. So this will be parent delete me. And I want to save a record. And then I'm going to create a child time frame, which is going to be child delete me. And so I should be able from there. Now this is interesting, is I can't from here go back to my parent. Oh, child delete me should be, parent should be, I'm sorry, I should do that. Okay, so now if I go back to my roadmaps, go here, parent delete me has one child. And so now what I want to do is make sure that when I delete the parent, it's going to delete the child. And let's see what happens. If I delete it, now child delete me is going to show up. It gets moved up, which may have been what I decided to do. Oh, so now it takes the children and moves it up. So I may be actually good with this. And so child delete me has 0 children. If I delete that record, then I'm good. So actually, I think we covered what we needed to. We may have fixed this in a prior one. And now if we go to immediate, we have only this task, which is now complete, and boom, we are done. So now that takes us to the next step, which is going to be deploying our application. And when we want to move this over, there's a couple things we need to do. This episode, I want to just, with the little time we have in this one, I want to go ahead and talk about the files we're going to move, and then we'll actually talk about setting up a production Django server in our last episode, because there are some tricks to it. As we currently see, we've got this thing. While this is mapped out pretty nicely, normally when you're running Django, particularly if you look in our settings, we're going to see that there's some things that you're not supposed to do in, where's it at? There it is. Some things you're not supposed to do in production. For example, security warning. If this was a key for production, then we're going to have to keep that secret. And that's used for a couple different things for security purposes. You may have noted that here, while we are HTTPS right now, typically you're not going to have that from the default. And so there's a couple things we want to do as well. Django typically is not going to be your front end. It's not going to be your front end web server. You're going to have it fronted by, maybe like a Nginx or something like that, or more commonly Apache, which is what we're going to show in that episode. But first, now we have talked about in the database side that we can take these things and we have our migrations that we can use to build our database from scratch. So if we wanted to, we could come in and completely recreate our database using our migrations. We're not going to do that this time. What we want to do is we're going to go in and we're going to do what's called Mysql Dump. And we're just going to take our database and we're going to move the whole thing over. And the way you do that is you're going to give it a -u, which I think is, got to go back to my settings. I always forget my database. User's root password is developerpreneur for this particular one. And so all I need to do is I'm going to take my database. What's the name of my database? Is DP project. And I'm going to do it to DP project.sql. So what I'm going to do is take my entire database and I am going to dump it out to a SQL file that would allow me to recreate. So I do that. And now if I look, let's go look at that real quick. If I look at that SQL file, I'm going to see that's got a whole bunch of stuff, and that's going to come into each of the tables down here, and it's going to see if it exists, drop it. And then in here, we're going to see as we go down, let's scroll down a little bit. We're going to see here, if you look down here, we're going to see where it's actually going to insert some records and things like that. Now, it does not actually set a database. So what we can do is I'm going to go back into the same. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to use this command line. There are other ways you can do it. I'll show my databases. And if I do use DP project, show tables. All right, so here's a bunch of tables. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create database. I'm just going to call it example. I'm going to use example, use that database. And then if I pull in dp project.sql, which is in the current directory of where I just ran this, then now I'm here, I'm going to see that I just created all my tables. So if I do select star from, what did I call it? Like DP project task, I'm going to see a whole bunch of information, which is all my tasks. So I can see here like set task background color based on status, and I can see that information. So I just completely replicated my database. Now I'm going to do drop database example and quit out. So what I have now is I have my little SQL file that is my database. Now the files themselves, there's a couple different ways we can do it. From our purpose, what we want to do is we've been using Git all along. That's Git. And I think if we go out here, if we go out to our GitHub account, we can see where we've got, let's see, here, and we can actually clone. So if I take that link and I can just copy it, I could jump on a new server, and let's just say we're going to do a new directory. So I'm just going to do make dir temp, make dir temp, cd temp, and then do a git clone that. And then I'm going to see that I have my project. I can go in here, and I could actually, if I wanted to run it, I don't think, let me kill this one because I don't think it's going to like having two. And let's just get down here and let's just run it. It's not, the manage is not there. I got to jump up one more level. Now run it. And boom, now I'm running my application again. So it's actually fairly easy for what we've got because we've been using GitHub all along, because we've got our database set up in such a way that we can easily dump it and restore it. Then we're going to be in a simple situation of being able to replicate this somewhere else. And this is assuming we're going to move to a production server. And we'll take a look at that this next time around. We'll actually go set this up on a production server. I'm going to get I'll connect to a different server, so we'll be able to actually see some stuff out there. But what we're going to do is, and we will just, all we're going to have to do is, depending on how you copy it, you can either do a SCP, so I could do, first, let's get rid of temp. And then if I go out to my, whoops. Oh, environment. There we go. And so I've got so I could just do SCP, DP project.sql to, my username at some number, some IP address or something like that, and home switch my username. And if I do that, then it's going to copy that file out. This won't, because it's going to say that doesn't exist. And I'm going to do the same, and actually I'm just going to do a git clone on the other side and be able to pull all of my files down. And of course, that does assume that we've been committing along the way. Now, typically, I think we sort of skipped over a little bit, but all you have to do is really, if you do a git dash add dot, it's going to add all your changes. I'm sorry. Dash add. Oh, 1 second. I reverse those two. It's a git add. There we go. So if I do a git add dot, I'm going to see if there's anything here. I can do a git commit, and I'm going to give it a comment of some sort, and it's going to commit stuff. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to commit my SQL file. And then we can tag it, and you will see, much as we have here, then you'll be able to come in here and you can clone it out. And you can see where we've got somewhere in here code. I think I've got, oh, here's my tags. I can probably see commit somewhere. I forget where I get to see all my commit history, but I can see this tag. I can pull this. I can actually pull the zip file or tard and gzipped file if I wanted. Let's see. So let's go back to our code. And I can see I've got some branches. And that's enough for there. That's enough for the GitHub stuff. That stuff you can pretty much play around with. And we are going to clone that out. Now, the tricky part is going to be our static files. And where's that? Because this currently is being served. If we look in our settings, it's currently being served from a /static. But what we could end up doing is we could actually, which we're going to show ourselves next time, is I can go out to http:// let's see, mysite.com/static, and I can shove all these files there, and it's going to pick them up. And that's going to be our where our Apache front end is going to pick those files up. So we've got a couple things we've got to configure, and I want to make sure that we sort of mention those before we get too far into this. And that's going to be our last episode. We're not going to worry about, or this one is, we're going to come in, we're going to have another place. We're going to have a server that we're going to configure. Well, it's going to be configured. We're going to configure our Django app on it. So just as sort of a heads up, if you're wanting to follow this all the way through, if you've got a server somewhere then that you're going to deploy to, that's going to be we'll call it your production server, make sure that you have Git configured. Make sure you have MySQL already installed, and make sure that you have Apache on there. And then we'll walk through those pieces, and that'll be our final episode. So as always, until then, have yourself a great day, and we will talk to you next time.